Hi, friends. We're very excited to gather together to pray tonight, and we're excited to have Jonathan Farmer with us, Lord willing. So I thought that I would prepare us for that prayer time by meditating on the first half of 3rd John, which we've been studying on this last Saturday. We'll study again this coming Saturday, Lord willing, and connect the dots between what 3rd John teaches us about partnering in the gospel and then our prayer time tonight. Let me just walk you through a little bit of the first part of 3rd John. It says in verse 1, "To the elder, unto the well-beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth." So this is a personal letter. John's not writing to a church per se, but he's writing to his friend. And then he calls this friend beloved in verse 2. "I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." So John wishes his friend well, but this seems to go beyond just formalities. He genuinely wants his friend to be doing well, and he wants his physical well-being, his material well-being, to match his spiritual well-being, which we'll talk more about in a second. But when we pray for physical needs, material needs. We pray about health, and all of that is appropriate, right? So there's maybe John's praying for Gaius's health because he knows Gaius is sick. So we pray for one another like that. We also want to pray for our gospel partners like that. And one of the things that means is that we need to know how they're doing, right? So we need to communicate with them, ask them how they're doing, reach out, and read the letters that we get from them so that we know how they're doing. Not just the state of their ministry, but how they're doing personally, how they're feeling, and what their hopes and fears are. So John prays for his friend in that way. And then he says in verse 3, "For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth." So John cares about those material, physical needs, but more than that, he says he has no greater joy than to hear that his children walk in the truth. And this children here is not biological children, of course, but spiritual children. He's invested in Gaius, and there's nothing that makes him happier than to hear that his friend is doing well spiritually. So he's gotten a good report, and that makes his heart happy. He goes on and gets more specific about what's going on, what he's heard. He says in verse 5, "Beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to strangers, which have borne witness of thy charity before the church, whom, if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, thou shalt do well. Because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing of the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellow helpers to the truth." Now there's several things that we could observe here, so I'm just going to pull out a few of them. First, he specifies what he's heard, that good report that he's gotten. And specifically, it is that Gaius has helped believers that he didn't know, believers that were strangers to him. He's helped them on their way. And these Christians who've gone out into the world, they've gone out specifically for the sake of Christ's name. They've gone out to tell others about Christ. So John says that when Gaius does this, that he's partnering with them, that he's become a fellow helper to the truth. That's why I love that we talk about our missionaries as gospel partners. We want to partner well with them. And we want to partner well because verse 7 says that we ought to send them on their journey, to bring them forward, send them on their journey, after a godly sort, or we would say in a manner that's worthy of God. So we want to do well to support our gospel partners. And that means that we want to support them well materially, help meet their physical material needs, but we also want to care for them spiritually. And one of the main ways we do that is praying. So in Ephesians 6, at the end of that spiritual warfare passage, Paul asks that the believers in Ephesus would pray for him and for his mission, for his gospel work. And so we want to pray for our gospel partners in this way. And we want to pray for them materially. We want to know how they're doing in all sorts of normal human ways. But we also want to pray especially for their success in the ministry, for their spiritual well-being, for their spiritual growth, and for fruit in their work. So these are some connections, I think, from 3rd John and then thinking of Paul's own ministry in Ephesians 6 that I think help us prepare for it and think about how to partner meaningfully with our gospel partners, with our missionaries, and we get to do that tonight, Lord willing.